Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Danny and today I'm going to go through my 26 in 2026 with you all. I did change the way that I do this list last year and I am going to copy that way again and make a slight adjustment. So I know that you all have probably seen a change in the blank in 20 blank because of how high the number has gotten. So people are thinking, okay, 26 in 2026, do I really want to designate 26 books that I'm going to read this year, or should I be thinking of a smaller number? And so a lot of people have either not done this trend this year or changed it in some way. So I'm kind of following suit. I think my limit for set number of books for a yearly TBR is going to be 25. I like the number. I like being able to split it up into 5 different categories, which is what I've done. And I am going to have each of those categories hold 5 books. So that's 25 books total that I am setting for the year as a yearly TBR. Well, I have 1 spot left. And what I'm going to start doing in years to come is I am going to set goals that are either for my channel, for self-care, for just life in general, and making this list work for all facets of my life and not just for my TBR. And I think that that's going to be manageable because in last year's 25 and 2025, I read all but I think 4. It was 4 or 5, and I did allow substitutions last year, and I'm going to allow substitutions this year as well. I am going to say out of the 25 books that I am setting, I am going to say I can swap out 5, but they have to fit the category that I'm swapping them out for. So one of my categories is a new release category. If I end up not wanting to read one of the books that I have set on the list, I can read another new release and it can fill that spot. I do have all of the categories that I have chosen down below. They are slightly different than last year, but I am excited about all of the books on this list, and I have definitely set a trend within the last couple of years of putting books on this list that I know I want to read. I know that sounds weird. Like, why would I set books on a list that I don't want to read? I used to use this as a challenge to myself and a way of kind of pushing myself outside of my comfort zone, which I was commendable. But I do think that it caused me to read all of the books on the list that I absolutely had a passion for and avoid all the ones I didn't until the end of the year. And then I was stuck essentially with all of these books that I wasn't super excited for. And so I have decided to make this a list of books that I am very excited for, that I don't think I'm going to have a problem picking them up. And I will find other ways of challenging myself throughout the year. And without further ado, let's start with my first category, which is new releases. These are books that are going to be published in the year of 2026. The first book I'll mention is A Tapestry of Fate, which is the second book in the Amina al-Sarafi series. The first book is right behind me on my shelves front and center. I really love Amina's character. I don't actually know what the second book is going to do. I don't know if we're continuing in the future or if it's going to be a prequel. I'm not sure. I haven't looked into it. I just know I loved the first story. If you guys haven't heard of Amina al-Sarafi, The Adventures of Amina al-Sarafi is the full title of the book, but she is a woman who has a young daughter. I think her daughter's in her preteens, and an aging mother that she has retired from her life at sea as a captain to take care of them and put her adventuring life aside. But because of some events that have happened, she has a friend reach out to her to go on a mission, one last sail with her crew to try and find something that was lost. I don't want to give you too many details because I haven't read it in a while and I don't remember what's spoilers and what's not spoilers, but you find Amina, who is very much in kind of the retirement stage of life, wanting to settle down and get away from the danger, putting herself back in the limelight and having some kind of crazy things happen. I really enjoyed the discussions in this book and the friendships that you have with these characters who have known each other for a very, very long time, but have gone on separate paths and having to come back into play. I also just like the humor in the book as well. So I'm excited for A Tapestry of Fate to see where Amina goes from here. The The next new release that I have is Wayward Souls, which is the second book in, I don't remember the series name, but the first book is Strange Beasts, which is a fantasy mystery genre blend. It's also a Sherlockian fantasy mystery genre blend. You have two women who are the main characters of this. Sam Harker, who has history with Dracula and Van Helsing, and then you also have the daughter of Moriarty, who are our main characters, our main sleuths. In the first book, they are very much in separate ends of their career. You have Moriarty, who has excelled but has definitely isolated herself and is someone who has gone out to do investigations of murders and of the creatures, the fantasy creatures, horror fantasy creatures that exist in this world. She's very comfortable in her element. And you have Samantha Harker, who has kind of hidden herself because she has this ability to commune with monsters, which could end up putting her in an asylum. And so she has become a researcher at this institute with monsters, but has never actually gone out to investigate any of the crimes that they help with. And they end up getting paired together to solve the murder of some grisly murders that are happening in Paris. And so this second book is going to be, I assume, another mystery that these women are solving together. And I just absolutely loved the first one. I had such a good time with it. I think that they're dynamic because of how different they are as characters, and them working together to solve the mystery was very fun. So I can't wait to see what these two ladies get up to. Next, we have A Trade of Blood, which is the next book in the Shadow of Leviathan series. The first book is The Tainted Cup, and this is a series that I have just dearly loved. I will read anything that Robert Jackson Bennett puts out from this point forward because he has shown just amazing writing skills and world building that I have fallen in love with. So I'm very excited to see a third book come out in the Den and Anna mystery series, which is another Sherlockian fantasy mystery where you have two characters who are in a very much fantasy world that has lots of flora and fauna and interactions with these huge leviathans that come out of the sea. And their whole society has been built on, the farthest away from the sea are the most entitled and wealthy people, and the people who live closer to the sea are less, I don't want to say less desired people, but they're definitely looked down upon within their civilization. And you have the military, who has built these giant seawalls with their engineers to try and keep the leviathans out. And in the midst of the first book, The Tainted Cup, you have a murder happen with one of these engineers, and Den and Anna, who are part of the government, have to come in and try and figure out what's going on. Each of the stories has definitely a through line as far as the world goes and how everything works together, how these leviathans have become part of kind of the hazards of their society, but also some other things that I don't want to say that came to play in the second story. So I am really excited to get back with these characters. I have loved the humor involved, but also the world is just very rich, and the mysteries are really fun to try and piece together, because I do think that if I was better at solving the mysteries within stories, I think Robert Jackson Bennett does a really good job of laying out these blueprints that you can kind of piece together to try and figure out who done it. So I appreciate that as well. Next, we have Agnes Albert's Mystical Cat Shelter. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce her last name, but this is a Heather Fawcett. Heather Fawcett wrote the Emily Wilde's trilogy that was part of my favorite books of last year. I've dearly loved Heather Fawcett's writing. I've read some of her middle grade as well. And this is another author that I will just pick up anything she puts out from here. I've already pre-ordered this. It sounds like a cozy fantasy where you have a woman who is running a cat shelter. Her mission is to find these cats forever homes. And something happens, I don't exactly know what, that causes this cat shelter to either have some type of financial straits or some reason that it might have to shut down. And so she seeks out the help of a grumpy wizard, I think. And it just sounds like it's going to be very sweet. I'm excited to get back into Heather Fawcett's writing. I have enjoyed, so even though I am not a romance reader by trade, it's not something that I gravitate towards. I do like a romance, especially a subplot romance. Not saying that that's what this is going to be, but I really enjoy Heather Fawcett's ability to make a romance a very important and integral part of the story, but also not have it harm the actual plot of what is happening in the book. So I look forward to another book by this author. Speaking of favorite authors, you might see a trend in the new releases category. I have Daughter of Crows, which is written by Mark Lawrence, and Mark Lawrence wrote the Library Trilogy, which is The Book That Wouldn't Burn is the first book. They are up here on my shelves, and I dearly loved that series, and so I can't wait to jump into another Mark Lawrence. I know that he has a lot of Backlist works that I could potentially get into, but I do really think that this sounds intriguing, and I'm pretty sure it has an elderly protagonist, an elderly woman protagonist, which I absolutely eat up. So I'm excited to start this one. It's also been told by Mark Lawrence himself that this book is quite a bit darker than some of his other stories, and so I'm interested to see that as well. This is deemed as a fantasy / dark academia fantasy, and you have a society that sells young women to an academy, and it seems, I can't remember what the academy is called. I know that they have something to do with kindness. I think the creatures that rule the academy, or the people who rule the academy, are called kindnesses, and you sell, or the kingdom sells these women, these daughters, to this academy, and 10 years later only 3 people will walk out of the academy. And I think they said for every 10,000 women, only 3 get out. And the character that I think we're following, based on the last little paragraph of the synopsis, is a person who was originally in the academy and has lived their long life, gotten out of the academy. The description says that they've lived a long and bloody lifestyle, and they weren't expecting for war to drop at their feet again. So I think that they get roped back into some things that maybe they've left behind. So I'm excited to see that. I don't know how that's going to work out. I didn't want to read too many things into the story because I do kind of want to go in just a smidge blind. So we'll see how dark this one really gets. The next category I have ties to one of my yearly goals. So if you guys didn't watch that video, one of my yearly goals is to read physical books that I do not personally have access to their audio. I have a lot of books on my TBR that fit this mold that I have been avoiding reading for years for some of these books, just simply because I don't schedule time to read physically as much as I once did, and I would like to get back into the habit because I really do enjoy reading physically. It just takes me longer, and so I do have to set aside time and make sure that I'm intentional about it. So that's what these 5 books will do for me. The first is one of those books that has been on my TBR for probably at least half of a decade, and that's Daughter of the Forest. This book is not only revered in the fantasy world, but I've heard a ton of people really enjoy this author's works as well, just in general, and so I do want to give them a try, and this series does sound interesting. I'm a little worried because it is classified as potentially YA, and so that part I'm a little hesitant, but I'm willing to give it a try. This is about, I can't remember the main character's name, but she is the daughter to a king, and she is the 7th child of the king. Her mother is not around. I don't really know why. I think like she's passed away would be my guess from how the synopsis was written. And her brothers, she's the youngest of the 7 children, her brothers dote on her, and so she has kind of a lovely life at the beginning, but then her father ends up bringing in another woman, and happens to be an enchantress. This woman has some type of sorcery that is laid upon the family, and if this girl ends up speaking before she completes a quest that was put upon her by the fairy queen, then her brothers, I don't know if they die, it just says she'll lose her brothers. And so she has to go on this quest to save her brothers without her voice. And I think it sounds like it's going to be really interesting. Like I said, it's been on my TBR for a really long time. I just haven't gotten to it yet. Next on this list is a book called Slayers of Old, which I have talked to you guys about a lot in the past 6 months after I found it. It is touted as Buffy the Vampire Slayer meets Golden Girls, and I love an elderly protagonist, so I'm excited about this. In this story, you have a group of people who are past chosen ones. So they were definitely the heroes in their story. There are 3 of them, and they've decided to live together and move to kind of a quiet getaway and have some peace and quiet. Well, the inhabitants of the village that they have landed in have decided to start doing some magics that bring about some creatures from the underworld that shouldn't be there. And these retired heroes have to come out of retirement and help save the world. I think it sounds like a lot of fun, and I was bummed. I had fully intended on picking this up in November, I believe, but I thought that I had the audiobook for it, and so I had put it on hold. It came in, I was getting ready to read it, and I opened it up and it's an audiobook, or it's an ebook. And I was like, oh, does my library not have an audiobook? And I just didn't have time to get to it that month. And so I want to make time this year to get to this book because I just think it sounds great. Next, we have another older read, and that is The Wolf of Oren Yarrow. This was recommended at one point by Elliot Brooks. It's been a minute since I've heard of this story. I believe this is a debut novel, and it features a queen who is... There's something that happens in the kingdom right before she is to get married to, I think, someone who would have connected her kingdom to another kingdom and protected them. And then she ends up getting called away. There's an assassination attempt, and she ends up in the middle of this really dangerous place by herself and has to fight her way back home. That's all I really know about it. I've heard great things. As I've said, Elliot Brooks recommended it, and I do tend to have similar taste, and so I'm excited to get to this one. It has been on my list probably the longest out of all of these, and it does sound like something that I would enjoy. I do enjoy like a strong female lead, especially one that maybe is put into circumstances that they aren't used to, and they have to realize quickly that they can handle it or they will die. So I'm excited to get to this one. Next, we have a book called The Counselor. I haven't heard many people talking about this one, but I am intrigued via the politics in the story. So this follows a woman who is the counselor to a kingdom, and it kind of reminded me a little bit in this regard to The Hands of the Emperor, which I ended up not enjoying the ending of that story, but the beginning of The Hands of the Emperor for Battle of Booktubers, it was going to be one of my best books of the year. It just, the ending really ruined it for me. But you have kind of that like secretary vibe that I'm getting from the synopsis of this story, where this person though is put into the circumstance where they have to choose the next emperor. And there are a whole bunch of people obviously vying for this position. There are some massive politics at play, but also some very conniving people involved that they have to try and figure out who the next ruler, who would be the best next ruler. Also, while trying to figure out who murdered the queen that they were the counselor to, and not trying to get caught. So I think that this one will pair political fantasy in a way that I really, really enjoy and I crave. And so I'm excited for this one. I haven't heard very many people talk about it, so I might be unduly hyping this up in my head, but I do think it's going to be great. And the last one on this list is another older title. I didn't realize how many older titles that I had on this particular category, which it makes sense. But that is Remnant Population, which is by Elizabeth Moon. This is an author I've been wanting to give a try for a really long time, but this one in particular I think is going to be fantastic because it features an elderly female protagonist. Can you guys see a pattern? And this woman has lived the majority of her life, I think the book says 40 years, on this planet that has been terraformed to support human life. And for reasons I don't know, the community and her village end up moving to a different planet, and she makes the decision to stay behind by herself. And so she's literally the only person still living on the planet that she's living on, and you get to live with her through that experience. I think that this has a really good chance of having some elements that I absolutely love in sci-fis, where we are inside this woman's head as she, one, lives by herself. So the only person that she has to communicate with is her own mind. And so maybe we're going to get some inner monologues about her life, why she's made this decision, what it means to be human, what it means to have a legacy, have people remember you. And I don't know. I don't know exactly what to think, what to expect. But this one has definitely been on my TBR for a really long time as well, so I'm excited to finally get to it. The next category I have is the backlist books of some of the authors that I have loved dearly in recent years. And we are going to be starting with Jim Butcher. I have absolutely loved the Furies of Calderon series. I love Tavi. I love the characters that were made and the political nature of the fantasy story, along with just this vast, luscious, not even luscious isn't the right word, but vast, really intricate fantasy world where we have these elemental creatures that live alongside humans. And I'm looking forward to getting to another series by Jim Butcher after I finish The Furies of Calderon. I have one more book, and I'm planning on getting to it next month. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that will happen, and then I can start The Aeronauts Windlass, which is, I think, an older series than Furies of Calderon, if I am correct. We'll see. If I'm not, I'll put it up on the screen. It might be one that was written in tandem with it, but you are following, it's a steampunk fantasy. So you have a world that has these spires that are, it sounded like they had almost like different sects of the kingdom that were promised to or giving allegiance to each of the spires, and two of the spires end up being at war. One of the characters that we're following is a captain of a ship who is purposefully attacking the cargo ships of another spire to prevent them from getting there on time, but his ship ends up getting damaged in the battle, and he ends up having to run on a mission that he wasn't intending to. That sounds very vague, but I know that I've enjoyed Jim Butcher's writing before. I've enjoyed the worlds that were created before. I like steampunk fantasy, and so I really am excited to jump into another series as soon as I finish the other one that I'm in the middle of. Next, I have Adrian Tchaikovsky, and I have actually been working my way through Tchaikovsky's works, but he seems to write like a madman, so I'm probably never going to get caught up. But I'm going to try and read Cage of Souls this year. I actually have a buddy read planned with Kirsten and Leandra for this story. And I bought this because I originally couldn't access it via my library, and then I now can, which is fine. I don't mind having it on my shelves. It's a beautiful cover, so I am excited about that. This, actually, let me read you the synopsis for this story just because I find it really fascinating and I love the way it was written. So this says, "The sun is bloated, diseased, dying, perhaps. Beneath its baneful light, Shadrapar, last of all cities, harbors fewer than 100,000 human souls, built on the ruins of countless civilizations, surviving on the debris of long-dead progenitors. Shadrapar is a museum, a midden, an asylum, a prison on a world that is ever more alien to humanity. Bearing witness to the desperate struggle for existence between life old and new is Stefan Advani, rebel, outlaw, prisoner, survivor. This is his testament, an account of the journey that took him into a blazing desolation of the western deserts, that transported him east down the river and imprisoned him in a verdant hell of the jungle's darkest heart, that led him deep into the labyrinths and caves of the underworld. He will treat with the monsters, madmen, and mutants. The question is, which of them will inherit this earth?" And that's the part I was like, oh my gosh. Okay, so it's somebody telling their story of the earth that is existing in this book. And I can't wait because I know Adrian Tchaikovsky can build out a world in such intricate detail, and I'm really, and alien life as well. The couple of stories that I've read from Adrian Tchaikovsky, he is really good at pulling out non-human components of his non-human characters. So like, for instance, in Service Model, we were in the mind of a robot, and within Shroud, we were in the mind of an alien at points. Within Children of Time, we're in the mind of spiders. And I think that he does a really good job of showing how different species would think differently because of their experiences and because of how their bodies are built and things like that. And so I'm looking forward to an entire world that has a whole bunch of alien elements on it as well. Next, we have Catherine Addison with The Orb of Caradu. So this is a book that connects back to the world of the Goblin Emperor. We are following Catherine Addison in I think, the aftermath of the death of the emperor that happens at the very beginning of the story in The Goblin Emperor. You're following, though, a character who was originally part of the Department of History. So he's an academic, and unfortunately an artifact that he was studying ends up going missing in his tenure, and he gets blamed for it. So he is kind of living outside of where he wants to live, but with the death of the emperor and happening on an airship, his best friend was on the airship with the emperor and has left our character a clue. And within that clue, it might hold his ability to get his life back from, it being taken from him because he was potentially framed for stealing this artifact. I just want to be back in the world of the Goblin Emperor. I don't really care how I do it. This is a novella, so it is pretty short, but I think it's a series, and so I think there are other books that I could potentially read within this, and this one sounds intriguing, so I'm excited to be back with Catherine Addison again. Moving on to a sci-fi author, I want to read more from Edward Ashton. So Edward Ashton wrote The Fourth Consort, which I dearly loved. I've also really enjoyed the Mickey 7 series as well, and so I just wanted more. And I found out that Edward Ashton had written previously a book that I've never heard anyone talk about called Mal Goes to War. And it sounds a smidge like the Murderbot scenario, where you have an AI who really doesn't want to have anything to do with humans, kind of thinks that their squabbling is dumb, but for some reason, with some circumstance, they end up in the body of, I don't know if it's a defense bot or it's in some mercenary's body that is trying to protect a young girl, and they have to protect this young girl. So I think that this story is supposed to have some commentary on war, as well as having some humorous moments too, which I do think is something that Edward Ashton does really well in his stories. It's one of the things that I really liked about The Fourth Consort, is that it doesn't take itself too seriously, even though it is talking about serious topics. I really enjoy that mesh. And so I'm excited to get into the backlist of this author because I haven't done that yet. The last author that I'm going to put on this list is one that has to be here, and it's Brandon Sanderson. I have not consistently read Sanderson within the last year, and I consider him one of my all-time favorite authors, and so I need to get back to his canon and not just wait for new releases, even though I'm getting behind on the new releases as well. But one book by Brandon Sanderson that I haven't gotten to yet that I really need to is The Emperor's Soul. This is another novella, and it's set in the same world as his debut work, Elantris. And while Elantris was not my favorite of the Sanderson reads, I really did enjoy the world it is set in. And so going back there in a little novella, I think will be fun. The premise of this also, I think, has the chance to be a story that I really, really enjoy. And we are following a character whose magic is, she's a forger. And essentially she can take anything with her magic and create an exact replica. And I don't know how she gets into this position. I think the emperor is dying and she is trying to replicate the emperor's soul. I think. That's how I interpreted the synopsis. I could get into this and be disappointed, and that's not actually what it's about. But one of the things that was mentioned in the synopsis was that this is an exploration of what a soul is, what makes a person. And that's one of my favorite things to explore in a book. And so if we can do that in a world I'm already familiar with an author that I dearly love, sign me up. The next category I have is tied to another yearly goal, and that is my series goal. So I wanted to put some series continuations on here. I am just going to say series continuations, even though some of these are finales, because I wanted to give myself a little bit of wiggle room. And, you know, if I do end up having to swap any of these out, I didn't want to say series finale. It gives me more of a base to choose from if I just say series continuation. So the first on this list is Best Served Cold by Joe Abercrombie. I did continue with Abercrombie in 2025, but I did not enjoy the continuation in his canon. It's not that I continued a series and didn't enjoy it, but The Devils was just not what I really wanted it to be. And so I am looking forward to getting back to a world, and maybe not with the same characters, because I think Best Served Cold is in the future in the First Law trilogy. I think it skips over years, and so I don't know that we're going to see the same characters again, but it will probably have the same tone and be in the same, well, I know it's in the same world. So I'm looking forward to that. I don't know anything else about Best Served Cold other than the fact that a lot of people have really enjoyed this. I can't remember if Best Served Cold is a standalone and then you get into is Age of Madness, I think is a trilogy, or if Best Served Cold is part of that trilogy. I can't remember, but I'm excited to move forward with the First Law trilogy, or the First Law world, because I really did enjoy that series. Next, we do have a series finale with The Trials of Empire. This is the third and final book in The Empire of the Wolf, I think is what the series is called. The first book is Justice of the Kings. In this, you have a character who is the justice for the government, or a part of the government in this story. You have three different powers that be in the kingdom. You have a religious component, the emperor, and then you also have the justices, which are like the people who are literally judges of the crimes that are committed within the kingdom. And the justices used to be the powerhouse, essentially. And they have started to lose power, which has caused some rifts within the kingdom that our character has to follow. Now, we are not actually in the head of the justice. We are actually in the head of his secretary, who is having some inner turmoil because she doesn't really know if she wants to be a justice, if she wants to take this path. She was a street urchin when she was younger, and this justice came along and saved her. So she does feel a little bit stuck with him because of her gratitude for the position that she now has, but she is constantly in turmoil with herself on whether or not this is the path she really wants to go down. And on top of that, you have this really dark world that we're in. It's very gritty. The justice that we are following with our main character is one that has necromantic abilities, and so you get to see that. I do think that the series got darker with book 2, and I've heard that it gets even darker with book 3, which I'm really excited about. It has some fantasy horror elements that I've really enjoyed, and I can't wait to see what Helena does in this third book, because I have a feeling that the chaos is coming. The next series that I want to continue with is the Stranger Times series. So I need to get to book 4 in the series, which is Relight My Fire. I also need to purchase it because I only have, you might not be able to see it because it's behind my little robot, but I only have the first 3 in the series. If you haven't heard of the Stranger Times, you're following a large cast of characters of a newspaper that is known for investigating supernatural events to figure out whether or not they are actually supernatural. It's very funny. The mysteries that they follow in each of the stories are very fun and do dive into the supernatural kind of known things. So just items that if I spout out to you, like if I tell you vampire, you kind of know what that means, and they play on some of the things that people think they know about these creatures and things, which I really enjoy. I think it was a lot of fun. I also dearly love the characters in this and the audio narrator. If you want just a fantastic audio. I thought that this audio was a full cast of characters and it's really just one person. And that's how great he is at the voices that he does within the audio. But the characters just are a little family. They're kind of a mess, kind of a lot of a mess, but you can't help but love them, and they definitely love one another, but don't always want to show it. It's such an endearing series, and I need to get back to it. Next, we have Echo of Worlds, and this book is the second and final book in the duology for the Pandemonium, which starts with Infinity Gate. I really, really liked Infinity Gate. The reason I haven't gotten to Echo of Worlds is because I don't have an audiobook for it, so it could have gone in that list, but I'm putting it in series continuation because it is just a book I want to get to. And I am actually, at the time of recording this, I am reading Outlaw Planet, which I didn't realize, but Outlaw Planet is set in the same universe as the Pandemonium. I'm hoping that it doesn't spoil anything in Echo of Worlds, but I am going to continue with it. I did a little bit of research on them once I found out that they were connected, and what I found was that the Outlaw Planet has different, like, very slight elements of some details within Echo of Worlds and Infinity Gate. I didn't think that that was going to be enough, though, to spoil an entire book for me. So I am really excited about getting to Echo of Worlds, but it is going to be one that I have to plan out my read, since I do have to read it physically. If you haven't heard of Infinity Gate, I don't even know how to describe it to you in a short synopsis. I guess the main components of the book are you're following a scientist who's living on a dying world, and in the midst of trying to save her dying world, she discovers interdimensional travel, and in the process of that discovery, ends up in the midst of a war that is just gigantic, more than she ever expected, and it's very, very interesting. It has a lot of different characters, a lot of politics involved as well, and I really, really enjoyed all of the characters and the mystique, like the intrigue behind who is narrating the story to you in the first book. And so I really want to get to Echo of Worlds sooner rather than later this year. So fingers crossed I can get to it within the next couple of months. Lastly, in my series continuations is a series that I feel like I've been reading forever and I feel like I don't talk about it enough. And that's the Invisible Library series. I want to read The Mortal Word, which is book 5 in the Invisible Library series. These are just very, very fun fantasy mysteries. I do think they're heavier on the fantasy than they are on the mystery, but I just love them. The Invisible Library, which is the first book in the series, you get to know a universe that has dragons and librarians. At the Invisible Library, you have fae and ghosts, and any creature that you can think of, fantasy creature, exists in the universe at large. And these librarians are supposed to be protectors of the library. So the Invisible Library connects a whole bunch of different dimensions, and the connections are made via these books that they have, or artifacts, doesn't have to be books, that they've gathered from these universes that are really, really pivotal works. And our main character, Irene, is in that first book on a mission to retrieve an artifact to bring back to the library, and ends up being swept up in some universe politics with the dragons and the fae, which you learn very quickly are like mortal enemies of one another. It's very, very interesting, and each of the books has followed kind of a different mystery, a different storyline that still connects to the larger one at play. I definitely would recommend reading these in order. I used to say after reading the first 3 that you could read them out of order, but book number 4 ties a whole bunch of the through lines together, so I do think that you should probably read them in order. I have had a lot of fun with this. It's a series that is very easy to read. It's very consumable, and they're not super chunky books. So I'm excited to get back into it, get back with the characters that I've loved, because living with them for a couple of books, or 4 books now, I have really enjoyed getting to know the character relationships, the friendships, especially between Irene and Kai. I just absolutely love them. So I'm excited to get back to it. The last book related category that I have for you guys is to do with genres. So what I've done is chosen 5 different genres to pick a book from. I can select new or old, it doesn't matter who the author is. And I'm gonna start with fantasy because I have to. I'm primarily a fantasy reader, and so I did have to give them a slot here. And for this, it's a book that I haven't heard many people talking about I've heard like a couple of people, but not a lot. And it is a story that I just think sounds absolutely fantastic, and I'm going to read you the synopsis. This is the Mad Sisters of Esai or Essie, and I just think it sounds great. Mylung and Layla are keepers of the Whale of Babel. They roam within its cosmic chambers, speak folk tales of themselves, and pray to an enigmatic figure they know as the Great Wisa. To Layla, this is everything. For Mylung, it is not enough. When Mylung flees the whale, she stumbles into a new universe where shape-shifting islands and ancient maps hold sway. There, she sets off an adventure that is both tragic and transformative for her and Layla. For at the heart of her quest lies a mystery that has confounded scholars for centuries: the truth about the Mad Sisters of Essie. Fables, dreams, and myths come together in this masterful work of fantasy, sweeping across 3 landscapes and featuring a museum of collective memory and a festival of madness. At its core, it asks, in the devastating chaos of the world, where all is in flux and truth is ever-changing, what will you choose to hold on to? I think it sounds lovely. I think it sounds like it's about sisterhood, but it's also about, you know, what it means to choose your own path. And I think it's going to be great. So a book that I definitely want to read in the new year within the fantasy genre. The next genre that I selected was sci-fi. And for this one, I chose a new release called The Ode to the Half-Broken. I don't think this comes out until mid-year, so maybe May or June. And it sounds like a fantastic book about a robot, which I'm a sucker for. You have a robot, or maybe AI, I can't remember how he was described in the synopsis, but they have something to do with the devastation of the world. They live in New York and are very much okay with not reliving what happened and are insulated in their own little bubble. But someone comes looking for them that knows what they were involved in at the time of the destruction. I don't know if it's of the world or the city. I'm gonna have to read it to find out. But because of the fact that this person finds them and ends up attacking them, taking their leg, and really messing with them, they end up going on a quest outside of the city to kind of see the ramifications of what's happened. And I don't exactly know what they're looking for, but their traveling companions are a cyborg dog and a human mechanic. And I just think that this sounds like the start of a lovely story, and I'm really excited about it. It sounds also something that could potentially delve into what it means to be human, as we talked about with several other books in this. I think that this is going to be a lovely story, and I can't wait to get to it. The next genre I chose was horror, and for this I chose The Man with No Shadow, which is part of the series that is called, I think, How to Survive Camping. And it is camp horror, but I am really excited about it. Leandra recently read the first book, and I just think that it sounds fantastic. So you're following a campground of sorts. I know that there is something to do with a girl who goes to this campground whose family have been killed at this campground, but it's not just this person's family. It's generations of other people as well, because within this campground, there are a whole bunch of fantasy, horror, folklore creatures that hunt there. And so the groundskeeper is literally giving you a list, a guide of sorts to make sure you survive being there. The first paragraph of the synopsis kind of cracked me up because it says, I am not giving you this as a means to kill your fun. I am giving you this so you don't do the small things that will end up leading to an agonizing demise, which I just think is such a phrase that someone would say to kids who are like, you're just giving me a ton of rules. I like the tone of the person providing the guidebook. So I don't know any more about it. I'm excited about it. I know that the second book, I think, comes out this year. I think that it's a republication, but and the covers are so cool too. So I'm hoping I love it so I can add it to my collection for that reason. But I also think that it just sounds like a lot of fun. The next genre we have is mystery. And for this one, I am choosing Big Bad Wool, which I am supposed to be reading in January. My hold hasn't come in yet, so it might be something that I do have to push off to February, but I am reading this one soon. This is the sequel in 3 Bags Full. It's also a book that is getting an adaptation, which I'm really excited about. It's called The Sheep Detectives. As far as the movie is concerned, it stars Hugh Jackman, and I'm excited to see it in theaters. But if you haven't heard of Three Bags Full, you're following a herd of sheep that their shepherd ends up getting murdered within the first couple of pages. They don't see the murder, but they wake up and their shepherd is dead on their field with a spade stuck through his chest. And they go about the process of solving their shepherd's murder. It's fun and quirky, and I love being in the mind of the sheep and seeing what they think about the human antics that are going on around them, because the humans are also trying to solve the case. It was just an amazing experience. I really enjoyed it, and so I'm looking forward to being back with Miss Maple and figuring out what the sheep get up to next. The last genre that I chose was a genre blend. So I allowed myself to choose any genre blend, and this is a book that's been on my TBR and off my TBR before, and I just really want to get to it. It's called Biddle Game by Shauna McGuire, and I am buddy reading this with Julie in March, so I'm excited to finally get to it. This is a story that I tried to pick up, gosh, it's been 3 or 4 years ago now, and I just don't think it was the right time. My brain was not absorbing what I was reading, and so I put it down and just didn't get back to it. This is a fantasy horror genre blend, and I have really enjoyed Shauna McGuire's fantasy horror elements in, it's the second book in the Wayward Children series. I can't remember what it's called, but it was one of my favorites of that series. And so I'm excited to see that type of writing within a fantasy horror. This features 2 siblings. I don't know if they're actually human, and it says that someone created them, but it's not their father. We have 2 kids, Roger and Dodger, and one of them is really good with language, one of them is really good with numbers. And you have someone who is their benefactor, who literally created them, who is trying to use their abilities to their own good. I don't know exactly what that means. It sounds kind of creepy. I'm excited about the language and number component to see how these characters think differently, how they solve problems differently based on what their specialities are. I think that's going to be a really interesting viewpoint to have. I don't know if we are going to be in both of their perspectives or if we have like an omnipotent narrator. I'm not exactly sure, but I'm excited to finally check this one off my list because it's been a long time in the making. So those are the 25 books that I want to read in 2026. Now for the last category, which is a channel goal for me. I might just make this miscellaneous goals in years to come. So for 2026, my one goal for my channel is to get it back into doing shorts. I have lessened the amount of videos that I'm putting out every week. So I used to do 2 videos a week. Now I'm only doing 1 with bonus videos every once in a while. And so I do think I'm going to have more time to create short content. It's definitely not my specialty, not something that I do even on Instagram. I don't think I've posted on my Instagram for a really long time because I just don't think about it. And I'm definitely more of a long form, like talkative. I like to chat about books. And so it's hard to do on a short form video, but I do want to try getting back into that because I have tried before. I just haven't stuck with it. So I would like this year, my goal is going to be to do 1 short a month. So you guys can hold me to it. I haven't done it yet for January. I'm hoping that maybe within the next week I can create maybe a wrap up for some of the books that I've read in January. I think that's my goal for this month, but we'll see what videos I come up with in the months to come. And that's it. That's my 26 in 2026. I hope that you found a book that you're interested in reading on this list. Did you create a 26 in 2026 or did you jump ship and do a different trend this year? I would love to know what books you guys are excited to read in this new year that we have in front of us. If you aren't feeling chatty, but you still want to let me know that you're here, leave me, is there a whale emoji for the Mad Sisters of Essie? Because I love that cover, that pink whale. It's just gorgeous. And I do think that there's a whale emoji. So if not, leave me a fish emoji and I'll know what you mean. I know that they're not fish, but we'll just go with that. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you have a lovely evening and I will see you in the next one. Bye.